Welcome to the Johnny Dell Football Academy podcast on the channel that's trying to answer the whys and hows of the game by talking through and dissecting game film and diving deeper to explain why the X's zig and the O's zag. I am Adam Marino, joined by Mr. Johnny Dell, and we are reminding you, as always, the most fun way to watch is on YouTube, where we go live. There you can comment into the live show. Be sure to hit the notification bell and turn on your notifications so you can be a part of the conversation. We also stream live on Facebook and X. Also, the audio versions are always found on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, if you are live with us in the chat, it's probably because you are subscribed, you've hit the notification bell, and turned those notifications on. So, when sharing with your friends, be sure to let them know. We also love to hear from you outside of our live show. Email us at johnnydellsfootballacademy@gmail.com, and you can always check out the website jfa49.com, as it is the most fun way to support the channel. Also, the way we boost the chat and boost the algorithm is to type out hashtag JD49.
Let's go! It is opening weekend of the National Football League 2025 season. The 49ers season kicks off in just 2 more sleeps. We have made it through. We have been waiting for this moment since pretty much November of last year. We all knew that the season ended well before the season ended for the 49ers. And so we have been just waiting through for this moment, for this weekend to be here. And yes, Kali, we do have the longest intro in the business. It's because I see up in the top left the running counter of how many people are live, and it's always only about 10% of who actually is in for the show is in within the first 2 minutes. So you don't want to give the juiciest stuff during the first 2 minutes. You want to give people a little bit of time to see those notifications, to hit that button and join the live show. So, and we, I ramble. Adam rambles. He's not here today because he's a Seahawks fan now. No, I'm just kidding. He could not make it, has a work thing. I told him I was going to tell everybody that he became a Seahawks fan, and he just replied with no. So that's what he gets for not being here this morning. But he rambles too, and so we decided to have something actually scripted at the beginning. And no, I haven't fixed the early outro video. That is on purpose. I feel like that when I ask a question, I want you to answer. You don't need to hear Adam's answer. You need to think about that question all on your own and answer it in your own mind. So you will be thinking about it post show. I cut Adam off for a reason. He just needs to get out of here and not ramble on with those answers. No, I'm just kidding. I love Adam. Adam is the reason this podcast exists. He reached out to me and got this thing going. So big thank you to Adam. I'll praise him when he's not here. That's how it works. But I am a little tired this morning because I'm in Central Time and I stayed up all the way through that weather delay last night in the game. That was a wild game. It felt like both teams knew nothing about how to play defense for the first half of the game, and then the weather delay happened and neither team could play offense. So it was something. And so yeah, I got to bed pretty late last night. It was around midnight my time when I got to bed after that game. It was fascinating to watch the Cowboys before the 2-minute actually perform the 2-minute drill correctly, spotting the ball so they could kick a field goal and actually have a play left over. And it was funny to hear Chris Collinsworth sort of sort of side jab that moment with the 49ers when he said, they handled it pretty well that time. They haven't always done that in the past. And we know exactly what he was talking about. Jalen Carter continues to prove that he was somebody worthy of the character concerns coming out of college. Got himself ejected before the first snap of the game for spitting on Dak Prescott. That's something. The fact that you think you can get away with that and not get kicked out of the game is interesting. It'll be interesting to see with the NFL putting a bigger emphasis on sportsmanship in the game. What will they do? The no-brainer would say if you are putting an emphasis on this, you will suspend him for 2 games. That's a pretty disrespectful moment in a game to spit on your opponent. And I have a feeling they're not going to, because it's the defending Super Bowl champs going up next week against the team they beat in the Super Bowl, the Kansas City Chiefs. So I doubt that Jalen Carter is going to get a suspension. He's probably going to get a very, very strongly worded letter and a hefty fine. But that's about it. I also think that it is beyond time that the NFL starts changing the structure of their unsportsmanlike fines. I think these get a little ridiculous because they don't punish everyone equally. If you punish, say, a special teamer who was just activated from the practice squad for a week for maybe targeting on a play or an unnecessary roughness, they're going to get fined almost their entire month's paycheck. They get paid like around $27,000 a month, I think, is what the practice squad makes, and the fine for that is about $15,000. So they're gonna get fined almost an entire month's paycheck. If you find somebody like, say, TJ Watt, that's about 4 snaps for him. So I think what the NFL really should do, and it's a similar thing with Jalen Carter. He's got a very high paying first round rookie deal. That if you really want to put teeth to some of these players, especially your big stars in the game, they need to start just having it like half a game check is what they need to do instead of these $15,000 fines. When a guy's making $2 million a game, $15,000 really doesn't mean a whole lot as far as a fine. You're not really having any sort of punishment hanging over them. I think it's about time that they start just docking paychecks, if that's what they're going to do, because then it hurts everybody in the same range. You dock a practice squad player a paycheck, they're going to feel it. You dock a big name player a paycheck, they're going to feel it. So that's what's going on. But right before the game kicked off, I think we all got some nervous Nelly news that apparently Christian McCaffrey was limited in practice today with a calf issue. This becomes very disconcerting when he spent all last year dealing with both calves, is what they were listing it as, when it was bilateral tendonitis. So it was really concerning. Now, I will say big props to John Chapman. Love John Chapman. He's doing a great job. I wish I could be there at the press box, which is a sports bar right by Lumen Field. This weekend, a couple years ago when we played in Seattle, I went up there and we were in town visiting family for Thanksgiving, and my wife and I went there and we hung out on the Saturday night hangout party with the 49ers Rush road trip, and it was a phenomenal experience. So big shout out to John Chapman. He is doing his kickoff there this week. It's going to be awesome. Apparently 49ers fans are filling out, expected to be 58% of the seat holders at Lumen Field. That's pretty wild. That's pretty wild. I think Seattle, we're going to find out how much noise they're actually pumping in, considering that if only half the crowd are Seahawks fans, it shouldn't be that loud when the 49ers have the ball. We'll see what happens. But anyways, John Chapman did note that all training camp, because he went to a few of the training camp practices, I think, or he was following everything, that on Christian McCaffrey's rest days during training camp, he was doing a 2-on, 1-off to manage that bilateral tendonitis, not just never get to the point where it can be overworked. That was the modus operandi all through training camp. He'd be 2-on, he would come out, do warm-ups, and then he wouldn't participate in practice at all after that. And so that is pretty much what happened. And if you look at the schedule, that is what would be. It would be 2-on, 1-off, and came out for warm-ups and then did not participate in anything. So that alleviated hearing that side of it. Was okay. This is the same thing that they've been doing for the entirety of the offseason. That makes me feel a lot better, especially when everything else about McCaffrey says he looks as good as he's ever looked. So I'm holding on to it. It's nothing until it is something. We're going to hope it's not something, but I'm also not going to sit here and say this really does look like it's something, when it very well, this could just be part of we're trying to manage his load so that this will never flare up during the season. So that's what we see. I'm seeing a reflection of my light ring back here. I probably just distracted everybody who did not notice that. But that's how my mind works. I see that and I see, oh my gosh, I see a reflection of my light ring, and the whole show's got to stop right there. That's just how I go. But anyways, I don't think McCaffrey's going on IR. I do think that them bringing in Brian Robinson was not as much about prepping for McCaffrey missing the season. It really was, they want to be more careful about how they manage him. I feel like there was a concerted effort to approach Kyle Shanahan and say, we have to manage Christian McCaffrey better than we did. You ran him into the ground a couple of years ago, and all of us did, and he did. So we've got to manage him. This has got to be a kind of a whole family effort to raise Christian McCaffrey. It takes a village to raise a child, and it takes a coaching staff to manage a Christian McCaffrey and his Achilles tendonitis. So that's how I view it. I'm not too concerned about it, but the only part that gives me pause for concern is that when you go face Seattle and you go face a Mike McDonald defense, which is what we're looking forward to, and that's what this weekend is all about. First and foremost, especially when I went back and looked at the film from last year. I did that yesterday at about 6 a.m. I woke up and I got the coffee going and I started watching film from last year. I started with the first week, the win, and then I went to the loss and said, what were the big differences between these two games? One game you score 34 points, the other game you score 17. That's a big difference, right? I think it was 33. You're scoring half as many points. Why are you scoring half as many points? And the number one thing that sticks out is that you did not establish the run. The run game was extremely poor and a huge drop off from the first meeting. And it sounds so cliche, but it's very true that you have to establish the run, especially when you are a running team. And not only that, if we just look at the numbers compared between the two games, in the first meeting, the 49ers ran for 228 yards on Seattle. Now, I get that a lot of that was Isaac Orendo at the end of the game, pretty much iced the game. He had that big 75-yard run, which is great. But even without that, running backs were averaging 4.9 or 5 yards per carry. And in that, Jordan Mason was averaging like 10 yards a carry. And then he sprained his shoulder. If you remember that, he had a shoulder separation that happened during that point in the game. Landed awkwardly on his right shoulder. I remember I tweeted it out when they showed it. I went, that looks like a shoulder separation to me. Only reason I know that is because I did the same thing on the same playing surface. So I knew exactly what that felt like. So when I went to college, the college I went to at the time, the Seahawks were leasing their practice facility from our university. And so it was our parking lot for the university. And on the other side of the chain link fence was the Seahawks practice facility. And they built that practice facility to mirror the playing surface of what is now Lumen Field. At the time, it was Quest Field. And so we would go play our intramural football games on their practice field. They had this big dome thing that they'd inflate and put up over the artificial surface there as their practice surface. And it was, everything about it was exactly the same as their stadium. And I was chasing a guy down, and I dove for a flag because we were playing intramural flag football, and I landed on my right shoulder on that surface, and I got a grade 3 separation on my shoulder. It was extremely painful. So when I saw Jordan Mason land on the exact same surface with this in the same way, I spotted and I said, that's a shoulder separation. Everybody told me I was being wild, and then it turned out afterwards, yes, it was a shoulder separation. But before Jordan Mason went down, he was averaging like 10 yards a carry. Remember, Jordan Mason was our third running back that year. And then we get to Isaac Garendo, and before that 75-yard run, he was averaging like 2 yards a carry. And so there was this huge drop off from there. And so when I watched that film, I was going, okay, George Kittle was a monster in the blocking game. I mean, I posted it on my X, he took Julian Love for a ride and pancaked him early in the game. And we were getting these chunk plays because then the Seahawks were over pursuing to any side that George Kittle was blocking on, and Trent Williams. So they're over pursuing. You're getting these big cutback lanes. And so that's setting up the play action. You get this big play action touchdown to Debo, and you get these play action passes to Ayuk. And so everything's working really, really well. And when you go to the second game, all of a sudden you look at who's out there. And the first play from scrimmage, Jalen Moore is in as a tight end because George Kittle had pulled his hamstring the week before. And Eric Saubert is playing as your movement tight end. So you have Jalen Moore, who's normally a tackle. He's now playing in a spot that he has never played in his life. Because you're trying to because you believe that little in Eric Saubert as a blocker, or whoever, or it really was probably even Braden Willis, is that you said, well, I think I have more trust that Jalen Moore can slide over one spot and give me better blocking than having Eric Saubert move in and then Braden Willis come in. That tells you how they felt about Braden Willis as a blocker. And so when you see that, and then you see these rules struggling moments where Saubert and Moore and Trent Williams and all three of them working together on these blocks, Jalen Moore is blocking like he's blocking with tackle rules and not the tight end rules. And so there's times where these blocks are getting blown and you're facing a too high defense and you only get a yard on a run or 2 yards on a run. And at this point, then you're also seeing that Dominic Pooney was starting to hit a rookie wall, and his play in that game was real poor. And you see that, and there's inside zones where we should be wide open, and they're closing quickly. Dominic Pooney's losing. Jake Brendel's not getting off his block at the right moment. And Seattle is able to sit there in a too high shell, and we couldn't run at all. Running backs averaged 4 yards a carry in the second meeting. In the first meeting, even without Garendo's 75-yard run and him averaging like 2 yards a carry on most of his runs, they were averaging 5 yards a carry. So that's a big difference. In the first meeting, ran for 228 yards, total 6.7 yards a carry. In the second meeting, it was 138 yards, and it's 4.7 yards a carry. And that was even adjusted way up because Brock Purdy had 5 rushes for 40 yards. In the first meeting, he had 4 rushes for 19 yards. So, like, Brock was highly productive when he scrambled in the second meeting, and he raised the rushing average. In the first meeting, he lowered the rushing average because he was just getting a few first downs. That tells you how much different the run game was from the first meeting to the second meeting, and that's why you have 33 points in the first meeting and 17 points in the second meeting. And so that is, and when I mean Jalen Moore was playing in a tight end spot for the first time in his life, meaning as a 49er in our system, in our run game system, it's very different. And so, and George Kittle caught 2 touchdown passes in the first meeting. Brandon Ayuk also was there and had a big impact on the game. He had torn his ACL by the time he played him the second time. So, and it's all of these things lead together to say, this is why, if you look at last year, the second game should not be the standard of what we think of as the 49ers or even Kyle Shanahan's offense versus Mike Macdonald and the Seahawks, because that team does not look like the team that's going to be on the team or on the field come Sunday. George Kittle, barring some horrible thing happening through walkthroughs, should be out on the field. You have Ricky Pearsall, who only had 2 targets in that game. He's had an entire offseason, and he's really coming along. Brock Purdy even talked about it, and I went over some of this stuff with Rob yesterday. Like, there was one play we ran a play action pass, and Deebo Samuel's running what's called a divot route. So it's about a 17, 18 yard curl right down the middle. And Brock's wanting to hit Deebo on that, and Julian Love is giving no respect to Eric Saubert as a receiver. Saubert's going out into the flat, and Julian Love is 10 yards off of him and right in the throwing lane down the hash. And so Brock doesn't want to pull the trigger there. And he doesn't pull the trigger to Eric Saubert, who's there, and he's open, and he's scrambling, and he throws it, and it's like a 2-yard gain on first down. And a 2-yard gain on first down leads to 2nd and 8, and then you run it, and you only get 1 yard. Now you're in 3rd and 7, and you're behind the chains, and everything is off. Well, Brock had talked about this even, these are his own words. He said, I was trying to play hero ball too much, and I should have just progressed and checked down more. I should have just taken the check down there. Well, that's a perfect example. Eric Saubert had 1 catch in that whole game. He had 1 target in that whole game. The interception that Brock forced to Christian McCaffrey was a moment. If George Kittle's in there, Brock's throwing it to George 10 times out of 10, because Eric Saubert was on a basic route, 10-yard in route. And when Brock is watching him, they came with a 5-man pressure. So there's no short underneath help. So the middle of the field's open. And Brock looks to Saubert. He looks, and then he moves on, because when he moves on, Saubert is getting some contact. The defender's head is inside. He's worked inside. And so Brock's going to look at that. He says, this is Eric Saubert. I don't believe you're going to win. And he moves off, and then he forces it to Christian McCaffrey, and it gets bounced in the air, and a defensive tackle picks it off. It was the guy's play of his life. It was the moment he'd been waiting for. He'd been training for that moment his entire life, when as a defensive tackle, he could get an interception. But if George Kittle's in there, Brock's going to trust that George is going to win. That's a matchup he loves, and he's going to feed George Kittle there, because Eric Saubert ended up creating enough space that he would have been open. But it's Eric Saubert, and when you look at him, he hasn't won inside early, and so you move on. So those things all has a cascading effect. And so I look at this game, I say that it's just not going to be the same circumstances. So, you have to establish the run against this. George Kittle is going to be a bigger part of that than I think anybody else on the team, with the improvement of Dominic Puni. Ben Barch has got to be healthy. I look at those things and I say the 49ers should run for like 250 yards on these guys, because Mike Macdonald runs more 2-shell defense than anybody in the league. And their defensive line is good. It's not great. They have some very good players on their defensive line. But this offensive line, if you want to say, if Colt McKivitz, you say you're going to be a Pro Bowler by the end of the year, Dominic Puni, you want to prove that you are going to continue off the strong rookie campaign, and you're going to be an all-pro as we go forward. Trent Williams, you have been the highest paid non-quarterback at one point in your career. You need to prove that you still are the Trent Williams we believe you can be. Ben Barch, you want to prove that you are an upgrade over Aaron Banks, who went and made $20 million almost a year out of the Packers. You establish yourself versus a good but not great defensive line, and you dominate the line of scrimmage. And it shouldn't matter if it's Christian McCaffrey, if it is Brian Robinson, if it is Jordan James running the ball back there. There should be some big gaping holes. We should be running for 7 yards a clip and hitting play action passes and absolutely taking it to this Seattle defense. So with that, I do expect a lot of heavy sets. I expect to see a lot of Luke Farrell and George Kittle on the field at the same time. I think that's why they're not as concerned about we need to have 6 wide receivers out there capable of doing everything, because they know this is a Mike Macdonald defense that runs too high shell. What you don't want to do is come out against that defense and start trying to throw the ball everywhere. You establish the run and you take it to that defensive line. So I expect a lot of heavy sets. And with that, then you have to limit your turnovers, because this is going to be a defensive game. It's going to be who is able to establish the run and stop the run versus the other guy. The passing game, I get like getting to Sam Darnold. If you can't stop the run, you can't get there. And that's going to be a non-factor. I get people saying Brock Purdy needs to put this game on his shoulders and he needs to prove that he's the franchise quarterback that he signed the deal to be. This is not the defense that you go and try and do that against. They protect against that as well as anybody in the league. This is the game where you say, we're going to grind this one out. It's going to be a pound the rock game, and we can put up 40 points if we do that. That's your pathway to 40 points, not your franchise quarterback throwing 35 times. This is a defense that is ripe to do that. And it doesn't mean it's easy, but that's the pathway to do it. So you limit the turnovers. You let your offensive line say, we're going to prove that we are a better unit than everybody says, and you go win the game and you dominate on both sides of the ball with that. With that, I'm going to get to the defense. I'm going to get a quick sip of coffee as we're getting through this. Big thank you. Oh my goodness. Great transition to the defense. Cayman's Island Podcast. Go subscribe to his channel. He's a great dude. Great dude. Met him. It was August 23rd. It was a Saturday. We ended up being under the same roof at a convention together. Wild how two 49ers podcasters were under the same roof in Alabama at a random convention that had nothing to do with football. We ended up meeting each other. We hit it off. We talked for hours there. I talked so long, my voice was shot the next day. It was great. It was fantastic. Thank you so much for the super chat. He says the 49ers will hold the Seahawks under 100 rushing yards if CJ West, Kalia Davis, Jordan Elliott, and Michael Williams can play very well in this game. I know a lot of people want Alfred Collins to be the guy. He's not going to be a healthy scratch. I think somebody has mentioned that, like, he could be a healthy scratch. He's not going to be a healthy scratch. They want to get him every rep possible. So I expect him to play 30 to 40% of the snaps. I do think that CJ West is going to get snaps ahead of him. He was clearly ahead of him during training camp. He was clearly ahead of him for this kind of a scheme coming out of Indiana. So CJ West, I think, is going to surprise a lot of people. His tape was as good as anybody's tape that I watched in college. I watched a lot of defensive tackles. You guys who were with me through the offseason, you saw a lot of tape of defensive tackles in college from Shamar Stewart and Walter Nolan. We looked at those guys. We looked at Harmon from Oregon. We looked at the Darius Alexander. Look at him. We looked at some Joshua Farmer. I think we even looked at him. I may have just talked about. I was looking at the kid from Oregon, not Harmon, the other guy. Caldwell, Jamari Caldwell. I love Jamari Caldwell. We looked at Alfred Collins. I looked at Tyrion Ingram Dawkins from Georgia. He was a defensive tackle. I watched a bunch of his tape, and I will say CJ West's tape was better or as good as anybody's that I watched. And so I think CJ West is going to be your guy. I think him and Jordan Elliott are going to be your base down guys right now. I think that's the way it's going to shake out. Maybe Kalia Davis is going to work in there. Kalia Davis is more of your pass rushing guy. He's got the quickness to do that. So now they may like him there. I don't know yet. Preseason, it's always hard to tell. He did come back to practice, but when I just think I'm just kind of eyeballing this, from the outside looking in, I think that CJ West and Jordan Elliott are going to be your base down, first and second down, earn the right to rush the passer, defensive tackles. And then once third down comes around, it's going to be Nick Bosa. It's going to be Kalia Davis, Michael Williams, and then Bryce Huff. So inside, you're going to have Michael Williams and Kalia Davis. Outside, your bookends, your rushers, edge rushers are going to be Nick Bosa and Bryce Huff. And that is, I think, much better. That answers what we'd all been wondering. I've been kind of, since the Bryce Huff trade, and I remember when we drafted Michael Williams, I was looking at this going, is he really the edge rusher kind of guy? Really strong edge setter in the run on base downs, but he looked much better as a pass rusher from inside. And they talked about that after the draft. We started going, what's going to be the plan here? And then they go trade for Bryce Huff, and it was who's going to be that fourth guy. When you look at it, you figured it was going to be Nick Bosa on one end, Bryce Huff on the other, Micah Williams kicked inside, and it was who's going to be that fourth guy. Might be CJ West. His bull rush is nasty. I think he's going to get some ops. Is it going to be Kalia Davis? When we saw him in preseason and some of the stunts that they were able to do, I went, okay, I kind of like that. I like that. Yeah, I think this makes a lot of sense. So this is a long way to answer that. The Seahawks will hold the Seahawks under 100 rushing yards if CJ West and Jordan Elliott are your base down defensive tackles. I don't see the 49ers, like the Seahawks run game, able to really dominate versus them. Now, they did go pick up Gray Zabel in the draft, which everybody was high on. That kid dominated at the Senior Bowl. He was probably the best singular offensive lineman in the draft, period, bar none. Like, it's not valued as high because he's a guard. But Gray Zabel was the best lineman in the draft, in my opinion. And so that's how I feel about that. But when we talk about the defensive side, that defensive line has to dominate against a not great offensive line. You know, you've got a lot to prove on the defensive side of the ball. Nick Bosa, you want to prove that you're one of the best ever to play the game. You need to go out and dominate against this defensive line. You did last year. In their first meeting, 14 pressures from Nick Bosa alone. The only guy getting pressure last year on Geno. And so Nick Bosa, go out and do that again. But you're going to get some backup this time. You got a Bryce Huff screaming off the other side. You're going to have a Michael Williams, who is a handful inside, but we got to see what you can do, Michael Williams, because we haven't seen you on a football field in a real game yet. And it's going to be coming at you quick. So it's there. But you dominate against a not great offensive line. You earn the right to rush the passer. And then Robert Saleh earns the right and has the ability to put Sam Darnold in a blender, because of the things that Saleh can do and will do with the mug looks and then the coverages that they're going to bring behind it. Sam Darnold, if you even look at what he did against our defense last year with the Vikings, it was not a great game. He had one big 98-yard touchdown to Justin Jefferson because Nick Sorensen thought it was going to be cute to try and fake a zone look and then put Odom, a safety, in man coverage on Justin Jefferson, and you get a 98-yard touchdown out of it. Outside of that, Sam Darnold was like 19 of 26 for 150 yards, 160 yards. It was not a great game at all. He had a couple good throws in there, but he also was the guy that, if you remember in that Vikings game, nearly lost the ball on a play that ended up going for like an 18-yard loss because it was almost the Jimmy G throw backwards thing against the Packers. That's who Sam Darnold can be when you put him in a blender. He will make mistakes and he will put the ball in harm's way. This has been the Sam Darnold story for his entire career. He has not changed. He didn't change with the Vikings. We saw it in the playoffs. We saw it against the Rams, that when you got pressure on him, you started to put him in a blender, this dude would fall apart, and he's going to give you the ball. Like this, that's what he does. He says, okay, I give up. Here's the ball. That's what he does. And so you have to be opportunistic when Sam Darnold gives you those opportunities, because he will be able to. You will be able to get to him. You'll be able to rattle him, and you'll be able to have him put the ball in harm's way. And so, yeah, you have that ability with him. And so you do those things. This game should be a really strong win for the 49ers. But there's some big questions. And we talked about the one beforehand, which is the health of Christian McCaffrey. That him showing up. And now, again, this is the first week that when a player misses a practice, you have to list a reason. They can't just have somebody miss a practice and not tell. It either has to be personal, because if they find out they're lying in some way about it, or that there's something that there was something that they had been doing that wasn't on the up and up, teams will get fined for this. So, like, if you say we are holding him out as precautionary every Friday for his calves because of the issues over the years, even if it's just precautionary, you have to list it on the injury report as that you held him out for his calf. It wasn't just a vet rest day. That you're, even if it's a proactive treatment, not a reactive treatment, you have to list that. And so, Trent Williams has a vet day, and so they've had that. He has that has no issue that they're trying to manage other than Trent's age. You can't just put age. That'd be a little rude too. They put it in a nice way. Vet day. They say vet day on that, but you can't say Christian McCaffrey's having a vet day if it's even as part of a proactive plan. So I do believe that this is a proactive plan, and that there may be a little bit more nuance in there. Tom Pelissero said he's heard that it's nothing really that's there, that is just precautionary, and so they have to list that. So the question about CMC health, I think it's much more trending right now towards not being an issue than being an issue. But if it is, then that's a question that is going to be a big one that's going to get answered by Sunday. Juwan Jennings, yeah, is there really something with the calf, or has this all been contract stuff? We're going to see come Sunday. And we're going to see how many snaps can he take. And that'll answer a lot of questions. And how effective can he be coming back from all these weeks of not practicing? We saw it took Brandon Ayuk many weeks to get back after he had missed so much time with his contract stuff. So how much of an impact can Juwan Jennings have? Ricky Pearsall, you had a very strong end to the year last year. And you had a very strong end to the year last year. So can you continue that? Can you show that you have taken another step, that what we'd all been kind of, excusing for the struggles early in the year of, you missed a big chunk of OTAs, you missed all of training camp, you got shot and missed the first 6 weeks of the year. You don't have that adversity this time. You've had the whole training camp. Everything's looked good. You were a first-round pick. Show us that you're a first-round pick. So Ricky Pearsall is going to be a question, and if he can answer that question, oh man, we're looking great if he's answering it in the right way. And then Micah Williams, you're the number 11 overall pick. We haven't seen you take a snap in a live game. It's time to show that you come out here and show us that this is why they picked you at 11th overall. And if you're 31st overall like Ricky Pearsall, I don't expect you to be a huge impact player your first year. But you're the 11th overall pick in the draft. You need to have some big time contribution early. That's why you're picked at that spot. You're not picked as a projection pick. You are picked both as a projection pick and a help now pick. You should be a future all pro. And so we want to see the signs of that early. And it is not saying you're going to have to be all pro your first year. Very few guys are. But it's week 1. We haven't seen you. Let's see you impact the game. That's what I want to see. That's the kind of the keys to the game going forward, the notes I have on it. Appreciate everybody here. I talked about this a little bit Monday, and hearing a lot of the feedback and post-show feedback. I have signed up for this, and we are going to do this. I will be broadcasting live during the game with a different platform. It's very similar to YouTube, but I'm going to show you what this looks like. This is liveonassist.com. You can go there, liveonassist.com, and I will be broadcasting here. You can see there's a lot. They do a lot of different games. They mostly do the European football that is there, but they're trying to build the American football side of this. These are guys that are from California, so don't worry. This isn't like some weird company out of Europe that I'm using. But liveonassist.com, during the broadcast, you go there, you will find me under Johnny Dell, same as it is here. Remember, that's no H in my name. Johnny Dell. I will be here, and I'm also going to post a link on my X that I will be going live and we're basically doing a watch party with it. The great thing about this, and our friend, if you remember her from a couple years ago before we did the Giants game, Adriana, unfortunately for her, she's a huge Giants fan and a Giants content creator. She was using Live on Assist last night for the broadcast, being NFC East. She was on there doing the live broadcast, and it's great. You go to the stream, you put in where is the game clock. It has a way to put that in, and it syncs that broadcast with your game, so that we will all, you will see my reactions in this at the same time as you are getting it. And there, so it's a spoiler-free chat. You don't have to worry about somebody that has some sort of stream that's 30 seconds ahead of you going touchdown Kittle. You don't want to know that. You want to be able to react live. I want to be able to react live. So there's a spoiler-free chat in there. You get to react to, you will see the reactions I have along with the broadcast. LiveOnAssist.com. It's very similar to YouTube. They have actually modeled a lot of what they've done in the way that they've created it out from YouTube. I've been in contact with the creators of this site directly. They reached out to me and they said, we want you to be the voice of the 49ers as we grow. And so it's a way that we can get a partisan commentary into the broadcast. I love Guy Haberman as much as anybody. I love Tim Ryan, but we're probably not getting them this Sunday. We're going to be getting somebody else. So I'm gonna help give you my takes during the game. We all, what do we all want to do, right? We all really want to be hanging out in a room with 50 other 49ers fans, 100 other 49ers fans, at a stadium of 60,000. But we can't all do that. But we can all watch and react and be excited about the game and all be upset at Jake Brendel when he misses a block communally together. We can do that here. That will be during the game. LiveOnAssist.com. That is live as in LIVE. We are live. On as an I am on top of this, and assist as in if you remember, John Stockton was the assist master in the 90s. So liveonassist.com, that is where you will find it come Sunday. Do not forget that. If you're like me, you have a bad memory, and so you need to hear that at least 6 or 7 times. It is liveonassist.com. And I will say, Dr. Steve, the NFL will not be able to block this like I've seen with this Stream East. I've never used Stream East. I didn't even know it was a thing. It doesn't give you the broadcast of the game. So this is my broadcast, and you can sync by putting in what broadcast you are watching and the game clock that it has to this, so that it will go together. Because yes, the NFL is not going to license to anybody other than YouTube TV the ability to watch a game, any game anywhere, or Game Pass International through DAZN. So we are doing nothing illegal. There is nothing here that can be shut down by the NFL. I'm not broadcasting the game. This is not a replacement for the game. It's so that if you don't want to listen to the commentators on there, and you want a partisan broadcast, partisan commentary, that I am providing that through this platform so you would have to have a separate device. And unfortunately, I would love for that to be the case. I would love for the NFL to work with individual content creators and say, instead of us paying out the nose for commentators that are there, and it being a very market controlled, what if we did have a licensing option to where you could choose your content creator of choice to be your voice during the game? You I would love to see the NFL take steps that way. Put the choice in your hands as the fan. Let the fan have a say in what the fan gets as their product, because this is one of the largest sports products in the world, but the NFL has very much not been that way. And yes, I do need to get back for the merch. I've been looking at the same people that Adam's been using for his Sports Idiot Nation. We did some shirts a while ago. They were good quality and everything. The margin was horrible. And so for an extra large shirt, I made $3. You got to sell a whole lot of extra large shirts to make any any leeway there. Yeah, and plus they were real expensive for everybody, so I didn't like it. It was like, in the end it was $39 for a shirt. I made $3, and everybody was spending almost $40 for those shirts. I didn't feel like it was providing the value to everybody that was there. So we didn't continue on with that relationship. But I'm looking into the same people that Adam's been using. I'd love to do some coffee mugs. If we could get some Johnny Del Tervis mugs, I'd be, because they're dishwasher safe. I'd be all over that. We have totally gone down a rabbit hole. But anyways, the NBA has been they're much more proactive in working with independent content creators because they see you as a partner with building the brand. They're much more welcoming of this kind of stuff. The NFL is trying to lock down everything. They are trying to lock down everything. We see it that's one of the reasons I don't do a lot of film breakdown on these episodes, the podcast episodes, because the NFL flags it almost immediately. And they hit you with a copyright dispute. And basically they say, we'll run ads on it. We'll take the money. You can leave it up. And then if you dispute it, they say, well, then take it down or you'll get a copyright strike on your channel. And 3 of those in your channel is deleted. So, and it hasn't been just me. They're doing this to everybody. Music groups are doing this to everybody. That's why I appreciate the people at JFA49.com more than you can imagine. We need to add about 75 more members before as we go to replace what the NFL has been fighting me over. So I appreciate it. Big thank you to Lisa coming in with a super chat. Use Amazon merch. I'll look into that. I will look into that. I want to make sure that it's quality for everybody. I don't want to just rush into some merch. I did talk to guys that John Chapman uses. They're really great guys. I met him at the 49ers Rush road trip. It was a big investment. I was going to have to order like 750 shirts. I don't have a place to store 750 shirts. And that was a lot to pay out at the front of that. And I don't do the live parties like John does. So cheerio to John and how he does that. He does a great job. But anyways, those are the things that are coming down the pipeline. Y'all are amazing. If you want to support the channel and support what's going to be going on Monday, which is all the film watching and breakdowns and the editing and all of that, head over to JFA49.com, become a member of the coaching staff. I love all of our members of our coaching staff. We've added a bunch of great members. I don't want to forget somebody, so I'm not going to start naming people off, but you know who you are. And thank you so much. You are helping keep the channel going. This stuff is a big time investment, and having the NFL almost cut you off completely is very hard. And having people come alongside and helping make up where that is fantastic. And we need to add 75 to 150 more members as we go to really offset what the NFL has really tried to block on my end. So thank you so much for all of that. I'm so looking forward to Sunday's game. I'm going to be here in this space. I'm going to try and figure out my snacks, my nachos beforehand. We're going to have it here. I'm going to have some tea to make sure that the voice can stay good during the whole broadcast. But we're going to be on liveonassist.com. They're broadcasting live from along with it. We can watch it together and hopefully be reacting to a 49ers dominant win over the Seattle Sea Chickens, the Sea Gals. That's their name of their cheerleaders, which is such a weird. That's a weird name, the Sea Gals instead of the Seagulls. When you're Seahawks, whatever. Anyways, the Gold Rush is way better. Anyways, but that's a much better name. But appreciate everybody. Looking forward to a big time win over everything, over the Seahawks, and starting out the year 1-0 with all arrows up to head to Louisiana and take on Spencer Rattler. So appreciate you, but until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and go.